We will not stop until we interview anyone and everyone associated with the subject, the house, and every piece of his life. This is a coast-to-coast investigation. This individual is in this country for one reason and one reason alone, because of the disastrous withdrawal from the Biden administration and the failure to vet in any way, shape, or form, this individual and countless others. And this administration has taken the rightful step to stop any further allowance of people with this similar background into the country.
And that's FBI Director Kash Patel on the investigation into the Afghan national who shot 2 National Guardsmen outside the White House last week, killing one and injuring the other. The FBI is discovering the suspect had ties to an Islamic missionary movement, which fuels the radical interpretation of Islam used by the Taliban and Pakistani militant groups. The suspect on Tuesday pleading not guilty to 2 counts of assault with intent to kill, murder, and possession of a firearm. Joining me now is former FBI agent and Fox News contributor Nicole Parker. Nicole, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. And just on Tuesday, DHS arrested another Afghan national who reportedly threatened to blow up a building in Fort Worth, Texas. Your reaction?
Well, first of all, that individual in Texas, he actually was very vocal about it and said, I actually came to the United States to kill Americans. And he said that the Taliban was very dear to him. And that's who we let in. This is an individual that came in under Operation Allies Welcome. And I know this is very startling to say, but I call it Operation Terrorist Welcome, because what they basically did, Maria, is that they opened up our country to those that want to harm us. I mean, this individual vocally said, I wanted to come to America to kill people. And that's who the Biden administration allowed in. And they talk about, we vetted everybody that came in. That is absolutely 100% false. I was an FBI special agent during that time frame, and they were asking agents to go do temporary duty assignments overseas to do this quote unquote vetting. I know agents that were over in Doha, and they said that there was absolutely no vetting going on. Wow. It's impossible to vet these individuals against information that does not exist in our database systems. They're coming from Afghanistan, a very primitive country. Everyone would say that their birthday was January 1st, and they would just select a year. And then even when they did see red flags, the FBI would say, look, we see red flags, or the Department of Defense contractors that they would work with said, we see red flags. And the Biden administration and State Department would say, let them in. And they did.
Why? I mean, I don't even understand this. I mean, this wide open border, and President Trump thinks it's like 20 million people, by the way. I know a lot of, we say 10 million and there's like 2 or 4 million gotaways. President Trump thinks it's much higher.
I think it's much higher as well, because how can you count something? You have no record of who came in here. So again, we had open borders with Afghanistan basically after that debacle. And I truly believe it's because they knew that they really made a colossal error. So rather than taking responsibility and accountability, which the Biden administration has never done, they go ahead and say, just let everyone in. Let's just get this thing done as quickly as possible. And that's exactly what they did. Maria, we will be dealing with the repercussions and consequences of their failures for years to come. Our national security, I literally know FBI agents that wanted to retire as quickly as possible because they said, we are sitting ducks, and when things go bad, we will be left picking up the pieces.
Unbelievable. And all the while, there's this weaponization going on under Biden's Justice Department as well. The DOJ today reportedly weighing new criminal charges against former FBI Director Jim Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James after their indictments were dismissed. A judge determining that the U.S. attorney leading the cases was improperly appointed. That was Lindsay Halligan. Comey's former lawyer is suing the Justice Department now, asking the feds to block the use of any seized material found on his hard drive and his personal accounts. Nicole, how does that happen, that he could actually say, oh, no, my personal information is off limits?
These individuals involved in this Comey debacle, I'm sorry, but they were absolute narcissists, and they think that they are above the law. And you know what? They have been above the law, Maria. Who have you seen be held accountable up until this point? Nobody. And again, I'm not saying that, this is not political retribution. And people are like, oh, the Trump administration is now just going after their enemies and political opponents. No, actually, that's what the Biden administration did. That is not what the Trump administration is doing. What they are doing is that they are trying to restore justice and do equal enforcement of the law. And as an FBI agent who worked under James Comey, he single-handedly destroyed the agency that I loved working for. And I do believe that he needs accountability. I believe those internally at the FBI that are good, solid FBI 1 agents that I talk about in my book, The 2 FBIs, They want accountability, but I think Americans, we want transparency. We want to know that if you do things that are wrong, you will be held accountable. Well, and that's not what we've seen over the last 4 years, especially under the Biden administration.
By the way, that's why we keep seeing it. So we had Russia collusion, no accountability. We had the Hunter Biden laptop, no accountability. Impeachments, indictments against President Trump, no accountability. No wonder they just decided to do Arctic frost and just start, tracking Republicans and supporters of Trump because they can. They'll get away with it. Now, I spoke with Mike Davis, the head of the Article 3 project, and he is adamant that we'll see accountability. Here's what he said. Watch.
Anyone who politicizes and weaponizes intel agencies and law enforcement to go after their political enemies for non-crimes has committed a very serious crime, conspiracy against rights under 18 U.S.C. Section 241, and this goes all the way to the top of the Obama administration. President Obama, Vice President Biden, Hillary Clinton, James Comey, Clapper, Brennan, Jack Smith, Jay Bratt, Andrew Weissman. There are so many dirty actors in this ongoing criminal conspiracy against rights. These people must be held accountable. I know that the new Miami U.S. attorney has opened up a grand jury in Fort Pierce, Florida, that's going to be impaneled in January. And I would tell these lawfare Democrats they better lawyer up.
Do you really believe that Obama is going to get indicted?
Presidents have presidential immunity for their official acts. At a minimum, he could be named as an unindicted co-conspirator. Lindsay Halligan has shown time and time again that she has overwhelming evidence that James Comey lied to Congress about his involvement in Crossfire Hurricane, the biggest scandal in American history. We've seen the evidence. She's produced it in response to James Comey's various motions to try to derail this prosecution. The evidence is overwhelming, but we do have Democrat judges in this courthouse in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., who seem to be going out of their way to protect James Comey and to try to kick this case. James Comey will face accountability, whether it's in the Eastern District of Virginia or the Southern District of Florida.
We'll see, Nicole. What do you think?
He's exactly right. A lot of times you can have all of the evidence in the world, but it really does come down to who the judge is and, frankly, when it goes to trial, who the jury pool is. So we're looking at the Eastern District of Virginia versus the Southern District of Florida. And I was an FBI special agent in the Miami division in the Southern District of Florida. I do believe that those in South Florida are going to have a stronger chance of serving justice on James Comey and others that were involved in this debacle. Again, this is time for the FBI to regain the trust of the American people. And if there's not equal enforcement of the law and there's no transparency, this is the one moment that they really do need to make sure that justice is properly served. Again, this is not political retribution. This is equal enforcement of the law. We need to see this. But again, it does come down to judge and jury pool. We've got a grand jury is going to be impaneled down in Southern District of Florida, in Fort Pierce. I see that things are going to happen.
Let me ask you, I know you wrote about this in your book, The Two FBIs, but were a lot of people aware that Jim Comey was doing things based on his politics?
Absolutely. And as we know, and I talk about in my book, he actually was a Republican, but then he completely went off the rails. And again, it shouldn't matter what political party you belong to. You should equally be enforcing the laws. And you as the FBI director should not be politically weaponizing the agency that you oversee.
Of course. Nicole, great to get your take. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Nicole Parker. Stay with us. We'll be right back.